Hello, my name is Matt Sachs and I work for Cooperative Strategies, an educational planning firm assisting Omaha Public Schools with the high school boundary planning process. Please watch this short presentation prior to taking the high school survey that can be found at boundary.ops.org. For a more in-depth presentation and discussion, we encourage you to attend any of the high school open community meetings. More information about the dates, times, and locations of these meetings can be found at the end of this presentation or on the OPS website. You may pause or rewind this video at any time to view the options or refer back to any of the data presented. This slide lays out the timeline for the opening of 2 new high schools and accompanying boundary changes across the district. New high schools at 156th and Ida and at 60th and L will open in the 2022-23 school year. All boundary changes to accommodate the opening of these 2 new high schools and to better balance student populations between existing high schools will take place in the 2022-23 school year. The current high school student assignment plan supports student choice to attend schools across the district. Currently, about half of all high school students attend a school that is not their neighborhood school. The current student assignment plan will have to be modified to accommodate 2 new high schools while continuing to support student choice across the district. Attendance boundaries must first be created before it can be determined how the student assignment plan may be adjusted for high school students. This slide illustrates the process Cooperative Strategies and Omaha Public Schools are following for developing district-wide high school boundary options and ultimately a final recommendation for the school board to consider. Please note that a similar process for elementary and middle school boundaries is being run concurrently. The first steps taken were a series of internal meetings to understand the variety of programs and school choice offered within Omaha Public Schools, collect data, and develop the data and tools to be used in the Boundary Committee meetings. At the Boundary Committee meetings, small groups of parents, students, teachers, and principals work together to develop initial boundary options to be considered by the focus groups and at the open community meetings. The focus groups were a series of small group meetings with students, parents, staff, and community members to view the boundary options and provide feedback on the benefits and challenges of each option, as well as any additional data that might be needed before taking options to the community at large. A series of open community meetings are being held to present and collect feedback on high school boundary options and elementary and middle school options in South Omaha. The dates and locations of these meetings can be found at boundary.ops.org or at the end of this presentation. After collecting feedback from the community via the online survey and open community meetings, additional work sessions will take place with OPS staff to review the community response and consider any adjustments that may need to be made before taking a final recommendation to the school board this summer. With the construction of 2 new high schools, attendance boundaries are needed to create a home attendance area for each of these schools. In addition to creating attendance boundaries for the new schools, additional boundary adjustments are needed to better balance the neighborhood populations between existing schools. When creating or adjusting attendance boundaries, the boundary committees were given some parameters. Attempting to assign 100% of an elementary attendance area to one high school. This allows whole elementary populations to attend the same high school if they choose to remain in their home attendance areas. Attempting to eliminate shared high school attendance zones. There are 2 shared high school attendance zones, one with over 1,100 students in which these students can choose between Burke and Northwest high schools, and a smaller attendance zone with less than 100 students in which students can choose between Bryan and South high schools. With the opening of 2 additional high schools, there is no longer a need for these shared areas. This creates more clarity for families residing in these areas as to their home attendance area. Attempting to balance free and reduced lunch and race ethnicity percentages. This data was provided to the boundary committees to attempt to better balance lunch and race ethnicity percentages where possible, and to ensure we aren't creating further disparities in neighborhood populations. Both live-in and enrollment populations were considered when developing attendance boundaries. Live-in population refers to the number of OPS students, grades 9 through 12, living within a high school attendance area, regardless of what school they may enroll in. Live-in numbers do not include students enrolled in private schools or attending another school district. The reason live-in numbers are used when developing attendance boundaries is to ensure that the number of students residing within a school's boundary is appropriate for the size of that school. We do not want to create attendance boundaries that would put a school over capacity if all neighborhood students chose to attend that school. Since some OPS students choose to attend a school not in their home attendance area, actual enrollment numbers are also provided to help understand the net gain or loss of students at each high school. Total high school live-in population will be 77.2% of total high school capacity after new school construction, also referred to as live-in utilization. Live-in utilization is the number of students living in a school's attendance boundary divided by the capacity of that building. These numbers were provided to show the best case scenario if the live-in population of all high schools were balanced equally. Rather than attempting to create new or modify existing boundaries from scratch, planning units were used. For the high school boundary process, elementary boundaries were used as planning units. Some elementary boundaries currently split between two high school boundaries. In these cases, they were split into two planning units, so committee members could make the determination as to whether it made more sense to leave them split or assign them to the same high school. The boundary committees were given the capability to move these planning units between high school boundaries and see what impact it had on live-in enrollment, utilization, and other demographic factors. One boundary option was created by each of the small groups working at the boundary committee meetings for a total of 10 initial options. These 10 options were reviewed by Cooperative Strategies and Omaha Public Schools staff to help determine the 3 options being presented in this presentation and at the open community meetings. This map displays some of the analysis of the 10 small group options, displaying the planning units that were assigned to the new 60th and L high school attendance area by percentage of small groups. This slide provides an overview of the boundaries, demographics, and various enrollment and utilization numbers in the current high schools. The various shaded colors and purple and black dashed lines represent the current high school boundaries. The blue squares represent the current elementary school sites. The black triangles represent the current middle school sites. The purple stars show the current high school sites. The red diamonds show the locations of all new schools. Here is the location of the new high school at 156th and Ida. Here's the location of the new high school at 60th and L. This is the location of the new elementary school at 10th and Pine. This is the location of the new elementary school at Fort Crook Road. And this is the location of the new middle school at 42nd and Y. The maps on the following slides for options 1 through 3 will be formatted the same way. The current live-in utilization ranges from a low of 38.8% at Burke High School to a high of 112.2% at South High Magnet. Please note that the 38.8% at Burke High does not include any students living in the Burke Northwest shared attendance area. Actual enrollment utilization ranges from 69.9% at Benson to a high of 122.5% at Bryant. When looking at the tables on this slide and the following slides for each of the three options, the red numbers indicate utilization numbers above 100%, the yellow numbers indicate utilization above 90%, and the green numbers indicate utilization below 90%. This slide displays the first option for high school boundaries. The new 156 in Ida High School is made up of the current Prairie Wind and Saddlebrook elementary zones from the current Northwest Magnet High School attendance area and the Fullerton Magnet and Standing Bear elementary zones from the current Burke Northwest Shared High School zone. The new 60th and L school is shown in light gray and made up of portions of the current Bryan, South Magnet, and Central High School zones. Additional adjustments are made between Central and South High, Central and North High, Central and Benson, and Benson and North High and Northwest Magnet High. Both current and proposed live-in and utilization numbers are provided to show the impact the proposed boundary changes have on each attendance zone. In this option, Druid Hill would be the only elementary school not feeding 100% to a high school. As you see in the proposed live-in utilization column, all high schools have a live-in utilization below 90%. Live-in utilization ranges from a low of 69.6% at Central to a high of 86.7% at the 60th and L High School. This option eliminates the shared high school attendance zones. This slide displays the second option for high school boundaries. The major difference from option 1 is that the new 156 in Ida School now also includes the Pecot Elementary Zone, increasing the live-in utilization at 156 in Ida to 92.2%, and decreasing the live-in utilization at Burke to 61.3%. Also, the northern portion of the Beals Elementary attendance zone remains at Central High School, and the Washington Elementary attendance zone is moved to the 60th and L High School attendance zone. This has a minimal impact on live-in utilization between Central High School and the 60th and L High School when compared to option 1. In this option, Beals and Druid Hill would be the only elementary schools not feeding 100% to a high school. As you see in the proposed live-in utilization column, all high schools have a live-in utilization below 90% except for the 156 in Ida School. Live-in utilization ranges from a low of 61.3 at Burke to a high of 92.2 at 156 in Ida, as previously described. This option eliminates the shared high school attendance zones. This slide displays the third option for high school boundaries. The Burke and 156 in Ida attendance zones revert to the same as in option 1. Center Street remains as the southern boundary for the Central High School attendance zone, creating smaller neighborhood attendance zones for 60th and L and South Magnet High School when comparing them to options 1 and 2. The Franklin Elementary attendance area moves to Benson High School in this option, as opposed to staying in Central High School in options 1 and 2. The Kennedy Elementary attendance area remains in the Benson High School zone, as opposed to moving to Central High School in options 1 and 2. In this option, 6 elementary schools would split at the high school level. These schools are Bancroft, Beals, Bell Ryan, Castlear, Druid Hill, and Field Club. As you see in the proposed live-in utilization column, all high schools have a live-in utilization below 90% except for Benson at 90.5%. Live-in utilization ranges from a low of 66.5% at Central to a high of 90.5% at Benson High. This option eliminates the shared high school attendance zones. Here is the schedule of open community meetings taking place through the beginning of May. We encourage you to attend any of the open high school community meetings for further discussion of the boundary options presented in this video presentation. We are also conducting a similar boundary process for elementary and middle school boundaries in South Omaha, and encourage you to attend the South Omaha Elementary and Middle School Boundary Community Meeting at South High Magnet on April 16th at 6 p.m. Thank you for your time and your involvement in this process.